Good morning. Here we are again. We meet again. So, yesterday I talked about dream farming and dream hunting because I'm a dream farmer and a dream hunter. Got to watch yesterday to see what I was talking about. But I see these as different modes of the same essential process. But they're modes that are suited to different contexts because we have different contexts in our world. And so I guess much of what I've been saying in loving, healing, evolving, dreaming in this ongoing healing journey, definitive journey that I've been describing, has been a kind of process embedded in civilization. And it's a context, it's a real context. It's where we find ourselves in this day and age. Civilization, working in the mental health and addictions field is an aspect of our civilization. And it's finally, to me, it's an evolved piece of our civilization because we finally aren't being judgmental and punitive about people who suffer with these trauma-induced conditions. We're approaching in a spirit of harm reduction, in a spirit of humanity and helpfulness, unconditional positive regard. And I think this is civilized evolution in process. The first time I was in a shelter and I saw people smoking the meth pipes, which personally I think is poison. And yet everyone's got to have the right to do what they do, and we just try to help them. Anyway, there I was in a shelter a number of years ago, and the police came through, and there was this active drug use going on. The police walked right on by it. That was my first exposure to this societal evolution, because in the past they've just been arrested and thrown in jail, but now we realize that we need to help them, and so that law enforcement came through, didn't make a move on them. It changed me to see it happening was good for me. Of course, when you're dealing with a shelter, you're dealing with that edge between civilization, where people are living in houses and working jobs and paying their taxes, and a kind of as close to the wilderness as you can get at the edge of our civilization. The shelter is one step away from people living on the streets, living in the bushes, living in the parks, living in the wilderness as much as they can. And so there's that liminal location. It's a threshold. It's a frontier between civilization and the wilderness. And so working in mental health and addictions, I feel that I'm working on the frontier of civilization. And I like to be there because I think you need a balance of knowing civilization and knowing nature to be healthy. I think you need to be a frontier dweller to live fully, or at least be able to transit from one to the other. Because I think one of the major problems in our society right now is that most people are locked deeply inside a civilized viewpoint and don't understand that that's a very privileged condition, and that doesn't reflect the natural world. Likewise, many people have this kind of natural world viewpoint and try to bring that into civilization, which is also wrong. They're both viewpoints that are effective, but which need their place and their time and their context. For example, I've been talking with my friends about the works of Cormac McCarthy lately. If you've ever seen the movie No Country for Old Men with that peculiar Shigur character, that's Cormac McCarthy. And The Road is another Cormac McCarthy novel. He's got a bunch of novels. Worthwhile reading, but his view is very pessimistic and very negative about human nature. And yet he is writing in the context, most of his novels, the ones that really resonate with me, particularly Blood Meridian and No Country for Old Men, of course, they're set in the frontier where you've got mostly men, I admit, out there in a frontier existence in nature. And it's a context where war is basically the prevalent spirit. And so their contexts and their novelizations in which love and love connections are seen as weaknesses. And in No Country for Old Men, I'll just speak at the movie. You've got Llewellyn and his wife there, Carla Jean, I believe her name is, and he's dueling with Chigurh in the movie, dueling on the frontier, and they're outside the law, and it's his love for his wife, which is his weakness, that is his downfall at the hands of Chigurh. Chigurh, who's this sort of immaculate angel of death, warrior kind of character. And that gives me a strange feeling, because on the one hand, in terms of a war, I mean, whether you look at Lao Tzu or you look at Clausewitz, it is those connections, it's those fixed positions which are weaknesses. And in any kind of military war philosophy, if you have a fixed position, which is a weakness, you've got to be able to be in control of that fixed position in order to avoid getting pinned down and getting into a predictable situation in which your opponent can capitalize. I realize I'm kind of going into a little deep zone there, but it pictured Cormac McCarthy pictured a very negative view of humanity, in that love and love connections were a kind of weakness. And that is anathema to what I've been saying here, and that love energy is the essential human condition, and that love is not weakness. Love is the greatest strength in the world. When you tap your loving energy, you have a wellspring of power that is limitless. It's limitless. It's as limitless as the cosmos. It's as limitless as the unmanifest as well. And so acts of violence and what we would call the world of war, maybe the world of nature, it's not quite true. It's just not quite true, and it isn't the dominant force in the universe. That's just a picture, you know. It's a picture maybe of the animal world, where might is right in a way. The strongest do prevail in a natural setting, and yet there's always a homeostasis. You know, there's no, genocides in nature. There's no slavery or conquest in nature. I mean, nature is in a harmony and a balance. And humans throw that all over the place, because we've got our consciousness, we've got our brains, we've evolved to this point. And so we have civilization. And in the context of civilization, that viewpoint isn't quite accurate, the viewpoint of war and love being a weakness. So this is why I think frontier living is important, because you need both. You need to realize that strength isn't about fairness or equality. There's all sorts of diversity. All sorts of people have different strengths. People have been given different qualities in life. There's nothing equal about it. We aren't equal. We're equal in that we're all alive and we're all going to die, and we're all human beings. And in civilization, we are all equal, and that's the way that is. But in our natural selves, we aren't equal. We're equal in our diversity. We're equal in our difference. And that's something that I think civilization needs to regain out of its myopism that I see anyway these days. And so when I talk about dream farming, I'm talking about a steady cultivation. Something that goes on day by day, the turning of the earth, the cultivation of the living things, growing them up, harvesting them, planting them across seasons and across years, stockpiling, growing. I'm speaking in a metaphor, of course, because we do that in agriculture all the time here. And yet, in the human level, I find that when you tap that love energy and you begin cultivating your dreams, it just enriches your life. And within civilization, that is orderly and systematic, and it's got to be. However, on the other side, in the context of nature, to be a dream hunter is to be whole, be complete, be strong, be a hunter, be a warrior, and go hunting for that dream, which is to say, the thing that spirit gives you out there in the wilderness when it happens. And if you've ever been there, you know what that is. So they're essentially the same process, because spirit has given us civilization, and spirit has given us the tools to, as I'm saying in my metaphor, cultivate dreams in a civilized sense, where our bonds of love and relationship are our strengths and hold us together. And then there's also the natural world where a different kind of ethos is at play, and yet it's the same thing. It's just a different modes of living. And so that's why I think frontier living is important. You got to know both. You got to know both to be whole. Not that there's any real separation. It's an artificial distinction that I'm making. Civilization is the manifestation of nature. It's not artificial. I'm not suggesting that our human civilization is somehow unnatural and that we're unnatural. We are nature. We're nature happening. The fact that we've created this technology around us, it makes us more like ants or bees, any kind of hive species, which uses its own natural tool making, whether it be, the chewed pulp that makes the nest of the wasp, or the elaborate and complex tunnels in the earth that ants make, or maybe termites make. I mean, this is what human civilization looks like. It's a hive mentality. We're building ourselves inside of a technology that protects us and allows us to keep our valued and precious things safe. At the same time, as I've said in previous sit-downs here with you, that I think that we're in an evolutionary process where we're looking out into this vast gulf of outer space. And that's going to be the domain of technology, technological beings, whatever that's going to be. I mean, look at the way we're coming inside technology. Being inside technology is the only way we can live in space. The only way we see space and galaxies and all the things that eventually will yield to exploration is through technology. Human eyes don't see those things. Technological devices see them. They are the eyes of some technological entity that's going to exist, that's going to explore the cosmos, and we'll be inside of it. The same way our cells are inside us. And if you watched that one earlier, it's like I think this is where we're at right now, looking into the vastness of space from our Earth perspective. It's the same thing that single cell organisms did hundreds of millions of years ago when they were looking up from the floors of the ocean into the vast eternity of the sea, the oceans of the earth, the circularity that they were enclosed within. They would never, and still can never, explore that vastness within millions and millions of their lifetimes. But we can go across the earth in 24 hours or something in a plane. In a plane, of course. This is technology. We are technology that's now inside of technology. And it's that technology which is going to be the next exploration. And yet, we can't lose our earth beingness. Our human bodies always belong on this earth, even if we evolutionarily develop to live in spaceships and colonize and explore the universe, which I feel is probably the next stage of evolution. There's always going to be a place for earth people, for planet people, because this is the place where our bodies live. This is where our senses operate. This is the place in which our reality is. And so, again, civilization is this enculturation which seems to be growing us inside of technology, which is going to take us somewhere else, And at the same time, we need to balance that with our being in natureness, our embodied selves, the way we are in the natural world. And so, dream hunting and dream farming are a way that, even though I said it in the context of cultivating one's dreams, I realize that it's a deeper concept I'm expressing. It's a deeper idea. And that's the idea of these contexts in which we live. Our civilization on the one hand, and our natural existence on the other. And in my own life, it's that frontier living which has been the most valuable for me. Knowing both. I was going to say something else today. Different topic. Here I am. Maybe I should make a different video about it, because so far it's been about civilization versus nature. dream farming, which is to say pursuing loving, healing, evolving, dreaming in the context of our civilized world of relationships, versus dream hunting, which is to say you got your loving and your healing in order and you're exploring, you're evolving and dreaming, you're hunting. It's a higher pursuit, which I'm likening to a kind of art process. I might do another one, but I'm going to stop that right there because that's that thought in its entirety. So, a strange one, and that one comes with how much it troubled me to read and to watch movies made on Cormac McCarthy's novels, because it's always troubled me that this sort of like this picture of the state of nature in for humanity is this kind of might is right, love is a weakness kind of picture. Doesn't really sit right with me, you know, and yet there is a truth to it. I think it's the truth that arises out of the context of being in nature. It's true if you aren't strong in nature, and by strength I don't just mean the inborn native strength in our bodies, but like strong in our devices and our technology and how we live. You got to go to nature in a strong position. You got to be ready for nature. That makes me think of, remember Into the Wild? Was it a book by John Krakauer about this young kid? Is it Christopher McCandless, who called himself Alexander Supertramp? And he was this bright young man who went and just journeyed out into the wilderness, following his spiritual inclinations. And then he went up to Alaska to live in the wilderness, and he died up there because he didn't respect nature. He thought nature was kind of a game for his benefit, I think, and he didn't respect it. So he just went out there thinking, well, it's all going to work out because, you know, nature's on my side and I'm a spiritual being, and therefore it's all going to be fine. And then the wilderness killed him. And that's sad. It's a sad story. And when I think of that movie, I think of the meditation of needing to respect nature, because you can't go to nature in a state of weakness. Otherwise, you're going to die. You've got to be strong to be in nature. And this is something I think we forget in our civilized perspective. We forget what strength means. You know, I think in many ways our offense culture right now is the elevation of weakness, because being offended is to be weak and to say they've got to be stopped because they're hurting me. Hurt is a very meaningful word to use. And I'm not saying hurt doesn't exist out there, and we've got to not allow hurt to happen in our world, but there's an excessiveness in our offense culture and in this cancel culture, which is, I don't know, there's something wrong about it. Reminds me of the thing I said the other day, with that terrible paradox of Jesus' statement, you know, the meek shall inherit the earth, said in the context of the Roman Empire, where might was right, and the Christians were like basically enslaved servants of this empire of violence. So yes, the meek will inherit the earth, which is in a way true, because the violent will kill each other and violent tyranny will never last. But the terrible paradox is that the meek have inherited the earth, but that doesn't mean good people have inherited the earth. That just means physically cowardly people have inherited the earth. The CEOs, the business people, the 1%, they're not the brave. They are the meek, and they have inherited the earth. That's civilization as it stands right now. And again, that's the problem with idealizing any group. The strong are not evil. The meek are not all good. There's always the good, the bad, and the ugly in every group. You know, like there's no escaping it. And so this is why I am an advocate of frontier living. Know both. Be strong. Be resilient. Be as strong as you can be, but strong in your loving being. It doesn't mean that you can't be a loving being. In fact, your loving energy is your greatest strength. Be that. Be strong. Don't be weak. Don't be brittle. Be strong inside yourself. Equally, don't be blinded and let your strength become some kind of like grandiose, arrogant, narcissist, megalomaniac position. No, because all humans rely upon our community together, and therefore our civilization is a key piece in our growth and our evolution. We can't just abandon it for some fantasy idea of personal might is right philosophy. It's like these are contexts. And I suppose if I think about, other ways of summing it up, civilization and all that's entailed there is kind of the domain of the left, and the state of nature is the traditional domain of the right, and you need both, and yet the extremes aren't real for human beings. You need to be a frontier person. You got to live in both worlds. Both worlds must be alive in you at the same time to be fully realized, I believe. Everything's got to be unified. Everything is one. There's only one nature. There's only one me. There's only one you. There's only one earth. There is only one civilization. There's only one kind of human being. And that's all of us in all of our infinite diversity. And that is that. To be continued. See you later. Be well and keep reaching.